Hello and welcome to It's 420 Wyoming. I'm your host, Red Hawk. Thank you for joining the third interview of the year. Wyoming NORML is hosting a special guest speaker on the 20th day of each month at 4:20 p.m. So tune in. Today we have a special guest, Bennett Sondeno. I think that's how you say it.
Sondeno. You're close.
Sondeno, former Wyoming NORML director. And I think you have a dispensary in Billings, Montana.
It's not mine, but I get to work there. Yeah. Sensi Care.
Okay, that's cool. I have the website here. We can look at it.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, great shop. They got my resume because they had the best flower I found. So.
Yeah. Very nice. I wanted to look at these right here.
Oh yeah, the 3-tier system. Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, we've got a couple vertical rooms where there's it's set up with a walkway. So what you see in this area as the second tier, yeah, where your cursor is there, there's usually a walkway that's right there at that height. In fact, you can see the sort of silver rail right along the edge of the bed, and so a walkway gets in there. You climb up on a ladder, and you do the second tier work on your knees, and you do the third tier work on another platform that stands up on the walkway, and then the first tier is just like knee height. So it's all it's fairly cramped. Like, there's 3 or 4 feet there is about all the space between the media and the lights, and you're working on your knees, or you're bent over a lot, so it's kind of cramped, but it fits a lot of plants in a small space, and it's really neat.
Yeah, I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you get 3 times the footprint of the floor square footage, so makes a single room a lot more profitable.
Yeah. I also have some questions about legalization for you.
Certainly.
Wyoming is going to attempt and table a new hemp bill this year, but still no bills for marijuana reform. Montana has been legal in some regards for a few years now. What are some of your opinions on how Montana has done and how Wyoming could possibly go if they want to go down the legalization path?
Yeah, Montana's done a pretty good job there. The requirements, as far as the state requirements uh, to have a dispensary and meet all of the check marks as far as what has to be done with each and every plant so that it's tracked from seed to sale. It's onerous. It feels onerous, but they are very diligent about covering everything. So I mean, we can't even throw anything away. Our waste, we have to record our waste, let it sit for 3 days so that it gets rotty. I mean, it starts to rot the first day. So in 3 days, it's like a soupy mess in a garbage bag. Then we have to mix it with garbage on video, and then throw it into a locked dumpster on video, and report all that to the state. So it's a pain, and it's silly when you're talking about just waste that nobody could do anything with except make compost. And they're making you record all this because I guess they don't want somebody who doesn't have any money rummaging through your dumpster smoking your waste. But that being said, it's very tightly regulated. And I know that although being somebody on the inside, it's just unnecessary. It's not a lethal plant. Like, you're protecting people from a harm that really isn't there. So it seems extreme, but I know that that's something that allows a greater level of comfort for people who are concerned about it. They see it as this a harmful drug, and you've got to regulate every aspect of it, or somebody's gonna abuse it and hurt themselves. And so it by following those sorts of regulations, it gives comfort to the people who feel they need to have control, I guess. But they do a good job of it here, and Wyoming can emulate the system here and do a good job. There's things that they can improve on, but it's in general, I would say it's one of the easiest states to copy because our demographic is similar. We're right here close. We can visit at any time, and it's I think it's a good example for Wyoming to follow.
Yeah, I completely agree. Um, how will we keep cannabis from the youth if Wyoming changes its laws? And
Well,
what are some of your thoughts on that?
that's a good question, and the research has shown that in the states that have legalization, youth use goes down. It's been going down nationally for years, and when it gets regulated and it's behind the counter and they're requiring an ID in order to get in the door, then those types of establishments push out the black market. And it can take a while, but it definitely happens. And then the kids don't have access. And not only do they have less access from the markets that are no longer as viable, but the what do I want to say? Not stigma, but the interest, the sort of renegade feel to it is gone. It's boring. It's just something that the smelly uncle likes to smoke, and I don't think they really care. And the numbers show it. The numbers have gone down since before any form of legalization, and in states even like Washington and Colorado, it goes down because it is tightly regulated, and the people that are selling it legitimately are the ones that people prefer to go to, and they require ID.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Another question is cannabis addictive?
I've seen numbers that say that it is that like 1 in 10 people can become addicted, but that's not a physical addiction. It's not like opioids where when you become physically addicted, if you stop, you may die. You become physically sick. It's not like that. It's more like a habituation. So you get used to it and it's pleasant. And so when you stop, you're less happy, you're agitated, you want it back because you enjoyed it, and it's a totally different level of addiction than the physical addiction of things like alcohol and nicotine and heroin, morphine, all the opiates, benzodiazepines, even a lot of other prescription drugs that don't get used recreationally because they have a high, they still will cause a physical addiction that if you quit, man, you might die. Um, in fact, another former director of Wyoming NORML, he nearly did die when he quit taking, I'm pretty sure it was gabapentin. He didn't like what it was doing to him, and he just said, I'm done, and he quit and got really sick and called his doc, and his doc's like, oh, well, you should be dead, so I guess you're lucky. And that you've got to taper off because that physical necessity within your body, that's just something that cannabis doesn't do. So
Yeah.
yes, they say 1 in 10 people may become habituated to it and then suffer side effects when they quit, but it's not a physical addiction. So
Yeah. And I think, cannabis can help people who are struggling with addiction.
oh yes, I know a number of people. I could start rattling off names. Of course, I won't. But I've seen people use it to get off of alcohol, off of tobacco. I have a good friend, well, deceased now, who he was on so many opiates for his neuropathy. It was unreal. I mean, we're talking morphine tablets, liquid morphine, Percocet, fentanyl patches. Boy, there I might be missing another one, and we're talking every day. So much that if I took that mass now, it would kill me. And when he quit, quitting it cold turkey should have killed him, but it didn't. And he switched to cannabis, and I mean, he got off all of those painkillers. He got out of his hospital bed. He lived 4.5 more years when he was ready to die previously. Lost 70 pounds. His diabetes went away. I mean, it was incredible. The difference that he had in his life the last 4.5 years versus the last, I don't know how long he was on those drugs, but they were killing him. And instead of weaning himself off gently like he should have, he just cold turkey quit it because he had cannabis and figured that was going to do it. And thank God it didn't kill him. But yeah, there are many people who not only use it to replace more harmful drugs, but actually utilize the balancing effect of the plant to gently ease themselves off those addictive chemicals.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to It's 420 Wyoming. I am your host, Red Hawk, with my special guest, Bennett. Um, how will we handle advertising for legal cannabis?
So, I figure they should just probably treat it like alcohol. If they can advertise for a party chemical that can kill you, then they should be able to advertise for cannabis. So I would treat it similarly.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. What could be the possession limit for legal cannabis in Wyoming if they do make it
Three
legal?
3 ounces is kind of a decent walking around amount. I mean, if you go to the store and you pick up everything you need for like a month, like you would at like a pharmacy or something. The average patient can do that with like 3 ounces. Here in Montana, it's 1 ounce. You can purchase 1 ounce per day at a dispensary. But as far as what you can have on you, I mean, possessed, um, I'm not sure what the actual personal limit, like say in your home, is, because if you grow it yourself, which is legal, you're 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 fine having all of the produce. And I mean, 2 plants that might give you 16 pounds if you're serious about what you're doing. So if you can have many pounds based on your garden, then a few ounces really it doesn't make much difference. I say a limit as far as what I would expect as a minimum, so that a patient would be able to, pick up a supply and not have to do it so regularly as for it to be a pain.
Mhm. Can somebody get fired for using cannabis in Wyoming?
Yeah, I'm sure they can. I mean, it's illegal, so I think it probably comes down to company policy, and if they have a policy of no illegal drug use, then say they have a random urination analysis, then if you were to pop hot, you'd be in violation of the company policy, and they'd have grounds to fire you. If there was no such agreement and there was no argument of safety or anything, I suppose maybe there could be a court fight. But at this point, because of the legal standing, I'm sure they wouldn't have a problem firing you.
So what is the difference between decriminalization, legalization, and medical cannabis? A lot of people that would vote for new laws on cannabis could be better educated on what those terms mean.
Agreed. So medical is going to be the most restrictive, because that's allowing for specific people with specific conditions, with specific approval by medical physicians, or medical staff, I should say, not necessarily physicians. Sometimes nurse practitioners or other health professionals can sign those medical certificates. But um, it's limited, it's very restricted, it's super specific, and yeah, you get your doctors involved. Then the legalization on the other side is going to have strict regulations, but it's available to anybody generally of a specific age. So 21, then you show your ID, prove you're 21, and if you've got the cash to buy it, you can buy it. Then the regulations are mostly on the producers, and that's you've got all kinds of bureaucracy and regulation around it. Then, and there are certain costs to the state. I mean, they wind up recouping it through generally massive taxes, but that's the state is very highly involved. Then decriminalization essentially just removes criminal penalties for like whatever they're specifically talking about. Generally what it is personal possession. So, you know, if you've got within a certain quantity in your pocket and they stop you, it would be most likely a ticket rather than having to deal with the court system or jail time or anything like that. It would simply be, you know, whatever level they set it at financially, and you just pay your $100 or your $50 or whatever and go your way. So it's kind of they want to slap your wrist and say you shouldn't do it, but they are going to look the other way while you aren't in view. So
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I just wanted to clarify those terms because it gets said a lot.
yeah, and there are people who prefer different routes. So some people prefer decriminalization because then they don't have to show their ID. They're not recorded anywhere. There's no interaction with anybody. They just do their own thing on their own and hope to never pay their $50. But and I mean, I understand that, but it's nice to have an open and accepted market where people can access it as they please, and people who put their blood, sweat, and tears into it can be, you know, remunerated for that work. And I mean, it's a better system. The government part of it tends to be excessive, and I sure hope that just gets better as, you know, the years and decades go on, and we see that it really isn't an issue. The kids don't care. They're keeping it behind the counter. You know, we don't have to track all their garbage by video every single day. You know, I mean, it's something that I think is probably the best route, but it still has its issues. So it's the lesser of the evils. Really, my frank opinion is that it should be the tomato model. You know, you're more likely to react to peanuts and have them hurt you. So treat it like a crop.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We're actually gonna go to break and watch a quick music video.
Seen her out in LA playing with the band. In Carolina, dancing on the sand. She's a star that's slipping through my hands, like the ones that fell on Alabama. She's red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue. She's my kind of girl, 'cause she's red, white, and blue. She'll get you high as the Colorado skies, and she shines like those New York City lights. As tough as Texas, and brother, she just might knock you to the ground if you start a fight. She's red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue. She's my kind of girl, 'cause she's red, white, and blue. She'll wait there in the harbor, holding up her light. She'll bring a fallen soldier home underneath her stripes. She's red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue. She's my kind of girl, 'cause she's red, white, and blue. She's red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue. She's my kind of girl, 'cause she's red, white, and blue. She's red, white, and blue.
Hello and welcome back to It's 420 Wyoming. I'm your host, Red Hawk, with my special guest, Bennett. Now, I have to ask you, how can the average citizen in Wyoming help to get cannabis legalized?
Two big ways that I know that are just effective. I mean, I know they're effective. I've seen them work for years and years of being involved in activism. One is to openly talk to your friends and your family and your neighbors. You know, when all the people around you that had no idea that cannabis was really a thing or why or knew anything about it, or anybody who realized they knew anybody who consumed it, you know, by breaking through that barrier, it humanizes the whole discussion so significantly. I mean, I've seen so we were petitioning over in Matitsi, and it's where my mom grew up. I mean, she was born there, and I mean, she was one of my just absolute best petitioners, man. I mean, she's never consumed it. She doesn't have any interest in it. You know, she did it for me. And that difference came because she saw the difference that it made in me. And it was positive. So anyway, we're petitioning, and she sees this fellow that she's known for, more decades than I've been alive, and she hollers out his name and calls him over, and they chat for a minute, and she explains what she's doing, and he sort of huffs and blows it off and wants to walk away, and she's like, no. Wasn't having it, was like, why, let's talk, and chatted for it wasn't even 5 minutes, and he signed our petition. I mean, she was like, these are all the things it can do. It's helpful for all of these people. What objection do you have? And he, I mean, by literally, 5 minutes, and there was nothing he could say to object, and he signed it. I mean, that's a simple step, but that was still a huge conversion of somebody who, when they walked up to that table, was like, nope, I'm out. And then at least when they walked away, was going to think enough about it that, maybe this helps somebody. Oh, I learned something today, right? So that's a big one. Talking, just, talk to anybody who's close to you, anybody that'll listen. The other one is call your representatives. So more talking, but very specific. Call your local senators, your local representatives who are in your specific district, the people that you're electing in the local elections. Call them on the phone. Don't message them. Don't send them letters in the mail. I mean, do those things, that's fine, but those things get ignored. If you call them and you speak to them, one person can make a difference by doing that. And when a lot of people do that, it really cranks up the volume. And I know from recent polling, in fact, that the legislators listen to the calls well ahead of listening to any of the other forms of communication, any of the less personal kinds. Now, that being said, if you can see them in person, if you can meet them during, like an open hour period where you can show up and chat with them, or you can set it up through their staff or online, whatever. If you can meet them in person, that's the best. But I realize that's difficult. So really what I'm referencing is making a call. And call them and do it repeatedly. Talk to them, establish relationships so they know you, they know what you're calling about, and be pleasant, be polite, give them good information, know where you're coming from, cite your sources. You can say, oh, nobody ever gets hurt from cannabis, but that's not true. But if you can say, the emergency room visits involve people relaxing in a quiet room and drinking water, and those numbers are decreasing based on these studies, then that has a completely different impact, to the listener who is going to be skeptical. And you'll find that there's a lot more support. You'd be shocked. Based on how little they are able to get done and how regressive some of the stuff that they do is in regards to cannabis, you'd be surprised at how much support there actually is when you start talking to individuals and, you're relaying personal stories. There's a lot more support than you would expect coming out of the legislature. They are actually closer to the statewide polling than you would expect based on the legislation that gets done. And I mean, I know they haven't done the survey for a while, but I mean, like 6 years ago, 4 to 6 years ago, I think the last time they did it, it was 75% for decrim and 85% for medical, and they'd passed the majority mark for adult use. So, I mean, the population is really behind cannabis prohibition coming to an end. So it's just a matter of not just educating and motivating the politicians, but just getting the stigma, I guess, continue to be broken down, and allow them to do it with a clear conscience, I suppose, as they see it, or at least politically, so that things will move. And I keep hoping every session, or at least every other session, that they'll do something. And here I find myself in another state working legally because I got an excellent job, and they still haven't changed in Wyoming. So there's work to be done. But yeah, those two things. And it's talking, whether it's to professionals or to your neighbor, but do it and you'll make a difference.
Yep. And I think that the sooner we get it legalized, the better, because there's still so much stuff we need to do, like research.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. They could be doing so much more if the shackles were taken off. And I think that's important, but certainly from a more personal perspective, there's individuals being harmed by the state every single day because of these laws. And actually, I'm now one of them. I'm going through the court system currently because of cannabis. And the public defender has recommended that I not speak too much about that, so I won't. But it still is a harm to my life. It's costing me. It's been stressful. It's having to interact with the system in that way is not a pleasant thing. It's taking resources. It's taking away from my work. I've already had to miss work for court over something that I do professionally 50 miles north. So it's this weird, dumb quagmire that really, really needs to change.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous that they cause so much trouble over just a plant.
Yeah.
And all it is a plant.
That God gave us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not something it's not something harmful. It's not a harmful drug. It's natural.
Yeah, it doesn't, when you look at it from the inside, looking out, it just doesn't make any sense. It's crazy. But I guess that's just the outplaying of ignorance. People don't know, so they react badly and they think it's evil, and that's why we have to educate still. But it's happening. And yeah, those harms, I don't want to see anybody else go through the system. Like it's such a pain. It shouldn't be happening. It feels like robbery. I see the way it feels is like, it feels like my medicine was taken by the state. So I got robbed, and now I have to go through this whole process with the officials so that they can attempt to extract more money from me for taking my medicine. That's that's crazy. To me, the Wyoming Constitution, Article 1, Section 38, guarantees me a right to not have this happen. It says I have the right to my choice in healthcare. And me and my doctors all agree that this is potentially the best form of medical treatment for ongoing digestive issues that I've had for basically my whole life. So the Constitution says I get to choose my health care because the state doesn't, because the state doesn't know. I know. But then here's this weird, I'm going through the system and having to pay for robbery of my medicine. It's crazy. It's just, it doesn't make sense.
Well, I hope that we can educate people with this podcast.
I think
thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It was a pleasure having you on.
Absolutely. You guys are killing it. I love what you're doing. I love seeing the exposure and the, getting to see the candidates, and just, it's great. What you're doing is really good. It's part of exactly what I'm saying. You're pulling back the curtain and just helping people to talk about it. And that's what we need. So thank you. Thank you all.
Yes. Thank you so much for saying that.